Meow! And welcome. Today we're doing something really cool. We're not just looking at some dusty old document. Oh no, we are dusting off a vintage treasure map, and it comes from Warren Buffett's 1977 letter to his shareholders. And you won't believe how packed it is with clues that are just as valuable today as they were way back then. All right, let's dive right in. So right off the bat, we get this absolute gem from the Oracle of Omaha himself. So what's he really saying here? He's hinting at a massive secret. The game you decide to play is often way more important than how perfectly you play it. Honestly, this single idea is basically the key that unlocks the entire map for us. So here's our game plan, the path we're going to follow. First, we'll figure out how to find what Buffett calls the tailwind. Then, we're going to get into the mindset of buying the entire business, not just some piece of paper. And third, we'll discover his favorite way to keep score. Then, of course, we'll collect all our treasure at the end. Okay, let's jump into our first big landmark. This is a lesson Buffett learned the hard way, and it's all about the incredible power of the industry you're in. It's really about getting the wind at your back instead of trying to sail straight into a storm. Now check this out, because this really paints the picture of Buffett's world back in 1977. On one side, he had this textile business, which he said had a very poor year. Trying to make that work was kind of like giving a cat a bath, right? A ton of struggling and fighting for pretty scratchy results. But then, on the other side, he had his insurance business, where he said the winds were squarely behind us. That was like a cat finding the perfect warm sunbeam to nap in. Even if you're not perfect, everything just works out beautifully. And here's the big lesson he learned from that. It doesn't matter how brilliant your managers are. If they're stuck in a terrible business with constant headwinds, they're gonna struggle. It is so much easier to look like a genius when you're in a fantastic business, where the industry itself is pushing you forward. The takeaway? Find the tailwind first. Okay, so let's move on to our second big discovery. It's one thing to find a great industry with a tailwind, but how do you pick the right company inside that industry? Well, Buffett's secret is a huge mindset shift. You have to stop thinking like a stock trader and start thinking like you own the place. And this quote just nails it. He wasn't gambling on squiggly lines on a screen or trying to predict what would happen tomorrow. He was asking himself, would I want to buy this entire company if I had the money? Because that's what a stock is, right? It's not a lottery ticket. It's a little piece of ownership in a real, living, breathing business. So how'd he do it? He laid out this awesome, positive 4-step checklist. And it's so simple, it's brilliant. Number 1, can you actually understand what the business does? No crazy, complicated stuff. Number 2, does it have a good future ahead of it? Those long-term tailwinds. Number 3, are the people running the show honest and smart? And finally, number 4, is it selling for a reasonable price? This isn't rocket science. It's just a timeless, powerful way to think like a true owner. All right, on to our final and, you could argue, most important clue on this treasure map. So you've found a good industry, you've found a good business, but how do you really know if it's performing well? You've got to have the right scorecard. You know how everyone, even today, is obsessed with earnings per share or EPS? Well, it was exactly the same back in 1977, but Buffett was waving this big red flag, and he made this fantastic point. Think about a boring old savings account. The money in it grows every year from interest, right? So its earnings are technically going up, but does that make it a brilliant business? Of course not. It's just math. So, if not EPS, what should we look at? Buffett tells us his preferred metric is return on equity, or ROE. Now, don't let the fancy names scare you off. It's actually super simple. It just answers one question. For every single dollar that the owners have invested in the business, how much profit does the company spit out each year? That's it. It is the ultimate business report card. So how did Berkshire do on its own report card that year? A whopping 19%. As Buffett himself pointed out, that wasn't just good, it was well above what the average American company was doing. They weren't just growing, they were creating incredible value with the money they had. Now that is a result that would make any money cat purr. And just like that, our journey's complete. We followed the map all the way through Buffett's 1977 wisdom, and we found the treasure. And it's not a chest of gold coins, but something way more valuable, a timeless philosophy for investing. So let's lock in what's in our treasure chest. First, find a business that's sailing with a powerful industry tailwind. Second, buy it like you're buying the whole darn thing, using that simple 4-point checklist. And third, Judge how well it's doing by its return on equity, not by the latest hype. These 3 rules, that's the real treasure.
And that really brings us to the end. What's so amazing is that these ideas are almost 50 years old, but they are as powerful and relevant as ever. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. If you apply Buffett's simple logic today, what tailwind businesses, ones so simple a cat could understand them, are hiding right there in plain sight? Something to chew on.